Hello, all you wonderful Authors Love Readers podcast listeners out there. I'm so happy that you're here. Before this episode starts, I want to talk a little bit about Patreon. And the first thing I want to say is we have a charter Patreon supporter, Linda D. I'm so excited that we have a Patreon supporter and that she was the one who broke the ice and started us. And amazingly, then we have two more supporters who came right behind her. We have Jennifer S. and Laura D. We hope more of you will join Lisa, Jennifer, and Laura in becoming a Patreon supporter of Authors Love Readers podcast. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm asking for your support of the podcast through Patreon donations. Let me tell you, it's really hard for me to ask. As my friends would tell you, I'm not good at asking for help at all. The reason that I set up for the Authors Love Readers podcast, it is not for me as an individual author. It's strictly for the podcast. I would love for the podcast to become self-supporting because I've been supporting it to this point. The expenses include having the podcasts edited, because you'll be surprised to know we talk longer than you actually listen. And I have a monthly fee for hosting the files because these are big files. And what I would love is to have people donate, a couple dollars a month would be terrific. $2 a month would be 50 cents an episode. It would be a sign of support and it would help defray some of these costs. So that would be the way I could keep the podcast going on. And I hope you'll consider that. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Jeff Carson, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Authors Love Readers. I'm so pleased that you're here with us, and my guest, also here with us, is Jeff Carson. I've just met Jeff, and I don't know how many ways I can say this. I met Jeff through Novelist Inc. The readers have heard that a time or two. And Jeff doesn't know I'm going to say this part, but I was very interested that we had different opinions about a business thing that I won't bore you readers about. And what I appreciated is that we were able to not agree about that and have really good conversation and connection about other things. So I guess what I'm saying is I tend to like people who disagree with me in a certain way.
Friends across the aisle, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, we're rare, huh?
I guess, yeah.
So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your writing and what you write, your book.
I write a mystery thriller series about a cop from the mountains of Colorado called David Wolf. And so it's the David Wolf series. Yeah, he's an investigator up there, a detective. And there's also been some other titles he's held in his professional career. And there's 12 books, and they all are standalone. Most of them are standalone. A couple of them are kind of hooked together. I'm working on the 13th one right now.
Good for you. That's terrific. Do you have a background that lends to that?
Not really. I think the first book kind of reflects what was happening in my life when I started writing. I was in Italy for a year with my wife, who's from Italy, and we had a 1-year-old son. And I kind of just was like skipping off rock bottom and just kind of was like, what am I going to do with my life? I want to do something cool. I want to do something inspiring. And so I figured out that I was going to write novels for a living. Yeah. And so my wife was, she was understanding, so that was good. And then, so anyway, I started writing right then, and it's about a Colorado cop the first book is about a Colorado cop who goes to Italy to solve his brother's apparent suicide. So it just, I'm not sure what the question was, but I think I answered it with that.
Well, are you originally from Colorado?
Yes, so I'm from Colorado. Oh yeah, so I was like, reading about like how to write. I read everything I could possibly read about how to write a book and stories and stuff like that. And some people say write what you know and write what inspires you and stuff like that. And so that's what was inspiring to me is it was really inspiring me because we were like in Italy and I didn't know much Italian, and I found myself just being pulled back to Colorado and just wishing I was there at some points. I mean, I loved Italy. It was
Yeah.
great, but it was tough at times, like, because nobody really knows English over there. And I didn't know very much Italian. Yeah, it was very isolating. So anyway, it was like a therapeutic thing to write that story.
That's great. A lot of times writing can be therapy and sometimes formal, literal therapy for people, but also, getting some of those feelings out. And what research did you do for the book?
Let's see, I spoke to one guy who was a carabinieri, which is the Italian military police. And I just spoke to Italians about just things that would come up in the story that, okay, what's this all about? What about this and this and that? And then obviously just internet, just like dove deep into it and just.
But your guy, because he was in Italy as a private citizen rather than in his official capacity, I would imagine that gave you a little leeway too.
And that's something that, I don't know if I struggle with, but I just have to work around with my stories is like, real life investigations are probably way less exciting than my books.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have, you gotta, I mean, a lot of times he is judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah. That saying about write what you know, a lot of times, I think what we know literally
is boring.
is boring.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And I've said this on the podcast before, but I worked 23 years at the Washington Post, and especially when I was writing romances for Harlequin Silhouette, they were saying, well, why don't you set something at the Washington Post? And I'm going, not romantic.
Yeah.
So, if you know it too well, sometimes that can be an issue and I think if you come to it from outside, sometimes you see things that the people inside don't.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest mantras I was telling myself was, what would I not do in this situation? A lot of times when I'm writing, you know what I mean? It's like, what am I, how would I not approach the situation? How would this guy approach the situation? And it's usually just, I'm a super cautious person probably in real life, probably like a lot of people, but David Wolf, goes into danger head on and doesn't really like talk about it. You know what I mean? He's not like talking about how scared he is. He just goes in, does it, doesn't worry about it. Yeah. So that was my mantra. Like, so I ended up not writing what I knew, I guess is the point,
Well, you had that central core of being in a different country and sort of the outsider looking in. Okay. Well, let's talk about your writing day. What does your writing day look like? And one of the readers asks if you where your favorite place to write is, and if you have an inspirational view. And I'm connecting this with your kids. I'm wondering how the kids work into your writing day.
I usually like to go. I have to take the kids to school every morning, and then I go to a coffee shop in town, one of two different coffee shops, because I feel like I'm, showing up too much at one. I'll just go to the other one for a little bit. And
pick on the other one.
Yeah, and then I switch. Anyway, so I do that for the morning until about 11 or 10:45 or something. So I'll get like a couple hours of writing in between in done there.
Yeah.
And then I come home and then I'll probably go for a walk and then eat. And then the afternoon, in a perfect world, at a perfect, when I'm really being productive, I'll try to write all afternoon. Not all afternoon, but like for at least a couple hours straight, or like 3 hours straight of like
Mm-hmm.
sprints that I
Yeah.
do, like 25-minute sprints, and then I'll stop and then for 10 minutes and then 25-minute sprints. Yeah.
How do you do those sprints? Do you time them, or do you do them with other people, or, over
Yeah,
the
I
internet?
have,
Or?
I do, I just time them. Yeah, I have the Pomodoro timer. It's like an app you get for your, yeah, for your computer. And it's just, you press the go button and then it just makes a noise when it's done. And yeah, so I just use an app.
Oh, that's cool. I've done them sometimes with other people too, where you're all on the internet and you say, "Okay, top of the hour, we're going to start," and it's usually go 45 minutes or so, and then come back and report word count. Um,
Well, oh, that was okay. So that brings me to my third place that I like to write, which wouldn't work for me. Is I'll get in the car and I'll pack a lunch and go up into the mountains because they're pretty close from where I
uh,
live. And so I drive for like 30 minutes and then find a place on the side of a dirt road and then that has a view, and I'll just sit there and write in the car. So there's no internet, there's
wow.
no anything. Yeah, it's just like dead silent. It's pretty cool.
You are the second author I have heard who does that. The other one is Donna Kaufman, who goes in the Blue Ridge Mountains in
Ooh, yeah.
Virginia, the Shenandoah Valley area. Um, do you ever get stopped, or well, you're already stopped? Do you ever have people ask if you're okay, or
Yeah, I've had a guy come up, like, "Hey, you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just writing." And, you know, like, I didn't know what else to say. And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he was in like he's like, "Yeah, I get, poachers on my land or hunters. I just wanted to make sure you're not." I'm like, "Oh, yeah,
uh,
sorry. Yeah. Do you want me to move?" He's like, "No, no, go ahead." I didn't realize I was like on his land.
okay. I have this weird little desert island. You're going to be there for a long time. You're going to be marooned there. That's it. Can't get off. And yet, this island has the facilities to play movies, but only three movies. Going to play the same three movies over and over and over. So, which three do you pick to take to my desert island?
Yeah, I thought about this last night, and now I'm regretting my decision already. But it's I've got Gladiator. I love that movie. That
Oh,
one's good. I'd keep that one. Jurassic Park. I don't know why. Every time it's on TV, I'm like, oh, I'll put that on. It's so cool. I don't know. I just love that type of story. And then Galaxy Quest. I came across
I love that too.
because it's sci-fi and it's really stupid, so that's good too.
It's smartly stupid or
Right.
stupidly smart or something.
Right. There's like actual physics involved, but it's dumb. Right. I love it.
Okay, so I see a lot of action adventure there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And certainly with the first two, well, the all three of them, uh, it looks pretty bleak, and yet there's um, triumph of one sort or another in the end. Certainly to the extent of survival.
Especially Gladiator, right? I find myself writing more stories kind of like Gladiator, I guess. I mean, they're not Jurassic Park uh, adventure. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's a little more. There's always a little bit of brooding.
That's really interesting. Yes, but definitely more brooding. So, from the time you started your first book, or when you brought it out, can you see have you changed and evolved as a writer?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If I read some of my old stuff, I cringe. And what did I do? I always say something like, I would be like, "Hey, he shook his fist. He was angrier than this and that, and he was, instead of just nowadays, I'll just say he shook his fist, right? It's just obvious he's angry. Why are you talking about it anymore? Move on, like, and I would tend to over explain a little bit. I feel, I guess, when I'm reading it.
When you finish up a book, this is a question from a reader. Do you find that you think about the characters after? Do you miss them? Now you have your continuing character, but there's characters that are specific to each book too.
Right. Yeah, I do. I definitely think about it. And did I put them through the right thing? Like that happened to me the last 2 books ago. I had to make a really tough decision with his life, and I made what I felt was true. And it was just like, I felt in my own life like I had broken up with somebody. You know what I mean?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
something,
Yeah.
but didn't kill anyone off. Don't worry about it. Anyone reading?
Are you tempted at all to go back and write an alternative version of that would
Oh
make
yeah,
kind
but I
of
mean,
a
I know I
cool
can't,
novella?
right? Huh? Sorry,
Well,
go
you
ahead.
could do a cool novella, you
Well,
know?
then everything going on would be different because in the
Yeah,
books,
that's
yeah,
true.
his life is continuously going forward, and I think that's why people like to read them. I guess. I mean, there's definitely that soap opera effect, um, or whatever. People like to know what's going on next, and
Right.
yeah. So yeah, I do
So
think about what I put them through. Is the answer to the question? Yeah.
so you're not only thinking about them, missing them, you're feeling guilt.
Exactly. Terrible. And my wife is like, why do you, it's just, you're writing for you, whatever you like. If somebody doesn't like it, don't worry about it. But there's that, it's like a paradox. Like you're writing for yourself, but you're writing for other people too. Right. Otherwise,
Mm.
why the hell are you writing? I don't know. It's weird. Do you struggle with
Well,
that?
to entertain yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, I find that if I let the thought of people reading enter into the writing too much, it can freeze me. So
Yeah.
FREEZE, not
No, right.
FREES. And so I have gotten to and you know, been writing long enough at this point that I say, write for yourself. It's the
Yeah.
only way you're absolutely guaranteed of one person liking the book. You know,
So much wisdom in those words, but yeah.
you can try to please everybody else and not please anybody. So at least if you please yourself, first of all, you're the person who's going to spend the most time with that.
Yeah.
There's nobody else who is going to spend months and months and months with this material. So
Mm-hmm.
it has got to be something that gives you a good feeling.
Yeah.
And
At the end, there's still going to be people who don't like it and people who like it. So, and then why do you put all the weight on people who don't like it? Obviously, I mean, these are all things that authors have to just push through and learn. And
yep, yep. Um, a reader says that one of her pet peeves is when the cover image doesn't match the character description. How do you approach covers? Let's start with that.
I do worry about that. That's like the biggest thing I worry about. I'll say, but this doesn't make any sense for the book. There has to be a scene in the book that I'm thinking of, or a concept that has to do with the book's theme or something. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I won't. Yeah, I don't want to mislead with the cover. That's the first thing that I worry about.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and what do I do? I don't know what I do, but I just feel like some of them have to be kind of a symbolic type cover. Some of them have to be like literal. Like Cold Lake is about, they find a fisherman reels up a body part from the bottom of the lake, and that's weird, So,
Mm.
so anyway, the Cold Lake cover is, the lakes. It's half the words are in the lake, half the words are out, and there's a like
That's cool.
a bag with
Yeah.
something in it. That's pretty literal, right? And then other ones are like my first book is upside down trees and then a landscape of the Italian city that he was in. And then, you know what I mean? So there's two different, I guess there's two
Uh-huh.
different worlds
Uh-huh.
that are coming together in that book. So that's more symbolic. Yeah. And that's what I do, I guess. That's what I think about.
Have you had your readers have any of them reacted more strongly to a certain cover?
Yeah. I don't know. I think just that Cold Lake one really stands out to everybody. I feel like everyone likes that one. The biggest thing I got to get over with my series is book one. I kind of misled. I feel like with the whole series because it takes place half in Italy, mostly in Italy, and then in Colorado. He wraps up the book, and then books 2 through 12 are all in Colorado or the Mountain West, or the United States, and it's more feasible that he's involved in all these cases. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
never wrote. So anyway, I feel like people have reacted strongly to the first book's cover that it was before, that it made it look like more of it. It's called Foreign Deceit, and it sounds maybe and looked a little bit like it was going to be an espionage international thriller, and I had to make it look like it's more, not
Have you
that.
have you had complaints from readers?
Um, Again, this is like, maybe two people said something about it and it stuck in my brain because that was something that I was worried about. You know what I mean? It's like,
Ah.
why did I do this at the beginning? Sometimes I want to just write a whole new book one and just like erase book one. But I like the story of Foreign Deceit too. So there you go.
And if people aren't complaining about it and they're finding your series and reading through it.
I feel like, yeah, the people who will read through that
Yeah.
will like the series. And that's, yeah.
So another reader asks about where we find our ideas, how we get our ideas, and this reader says that she knows of people who dream their stories. That sounds so lovely, and others where the characters start talking in their heads, and I have had that happen. But how do you start with an idea? How does an idea come to you?
It just probably varies every time.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, I got to think of a crime that happened, or I got to think of a story, and then it just starts popping in my head. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can remember the Cold Lake one. We were in Grand Lake up in the mountains, and it was cold that day, and there was the lake, and I was like, Cold Lake. That's a great name for a book, and that was easy to come up with that one.
How did you go from that to a completed story idea?
Yeah, and I would have to say, like, that never happens. I never get the book name first. Sometimes I do. But anyway, okay, how do I get to a completed story?
Yeah.
I start off with the structure. I say, what's his life like right now? What's the inciting incident? So what's going to happen? And it's usually, with a murder mystery, there's going to be a dead body or somebody, whatever, it's the crime has happened or is, you know what I mean? Like, so it's
Yes.
the crime. Um, and then I think of the end of the first act, which is going to be, that's where he is all in with the story. Like he's not going to just pawn off the investigation to somebody
Mhm.
else and be like, you figure it out. I don't even care about this. This is
Really
terrible.
short story there, Jeff.
Right. Exactly. So it's got to be personal for him. So I got to figure out, okay, how is this going to be personal for him? Then I think about the midpoint and I think, okay, there's got to be something, a character transformation at this point, or a character uh, strengthening of what he already thinks, maybe, or something, just some sort of like really hard, difficult point where he wonders if he can even do it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
then there's the then there's the third plot point, or fourth if you're counting the inciting incident, and then that's going to be like the next major twist, or Yeah, like point of no return, or I mean, all is lost moments. Sorry,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
more like everything is kind of lost. There's like it's like he's the furthest from the truth he's ever going to be. Maybe a revelation, and then the climax, and then everything after the climax. So it's very. I'm really thinking along those structured lines, and I can usually write the first half of the book really easily, and then my wife knows when I'm in the middle of the book because I turn terrible.
Surly.
Because I feel now I've figured this out, that I go through exactly what the character is going through, because I wonder, can I even write this book? Why the hell did I even start this book? This is not going to work. These are the reasons why. And then I figure it out, and then I just roll through to the end. Um, and I feel like that's exactly what the character should be doing in the book. So somehow it manifests in my real life. Yeah, there you go.
That sagging middle, that the middle
Yeah.
trauma is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I write out a sequence. I write whatever I know when I know it, and then my structure comes toward the end. But I still have that. For me, the middle is not the middle of the book, it's the middle of the writing process. And I still have that, well, this one isn't a book. This
Right.
one really isn't going to pull together. I'm at 50 books, so I don't think
50.
this is going to go away.
That's my next thing that I really need to learn, is how to allow myself to just keep going and not being stopped and being like, okay, wait a minute, let's backtrack and see exactly where we're going here. And obviously, if you have 50 books out, you're pretty good at that. And I need to start talking to people like you. So stay on the line after this.
Okay. If you could write a book with any author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and why? That is from a reader.
I just keep thinking Clive Cussler right off the bat. That was the guy. I feel like he's got that, action adventure, over the top, cool story, but he was very good too. He was very good with his prose, and better than I could be, I feel. And yeah, so I think that would be cool, because then you'd have to, you'd write half the book on like a boat in the middle of nowhere. That'd be cool.
What part of the process do you think you're the best at?
I feel like the plotting for sure, I guess, and then like
Mm.
the plotting and the ends of books. I feel like
Mm.
there's always a feeling at the end where you're like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like I can capture that. I'm not sure if I've missed it before,
That's
but
a a great ability to have, because that's, as a reader, that's what gets me on to the next book. And if the
yeah.
ending is really good, that's what I take away.
And that was like, I have one book that I probably missed it for some people because they wanted it to turn out a certain way, but otherwise all the other books, I feel like I've hit it.
Mm. Mhm. That's a
But
great ability to have. So,
yeah.
okay, let's talk about how you interact with readers, and do you have any great stories?
I just encourage people to email me, I guess, and like I'll get on Facebook every once in a while, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just ignored this person for a month and 2 weeks. But I always just make sure that I respond to everybody, and I think that's good. And then yeah, I've had like some moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like people saying that they have a woman told me that she had, cancer riddled through her whole body, and she doesn't have much time to live, and she
Oh,
can't sleep at night, but thanks for writing the books and it's really helping her. And I'm just like, oh my God, you know,
oh, yeah.
you try to not take like I said, I try to not take the positive with the negative too much, but sometimes people say things you're just like, wow, I guess this is worthwhile to do, like, um,
Truly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
There's a writer, whom I know, and Kathleen Gillis Seidel, who's a women's fiction writer. And she
Hmm.
also gave a talk at the library, which is how I got started and knew about the Romance Writers of America. And I was writing at that point, but I had no clue what genres were or any of this. But Kathleen says that her goal is not to change people's lives; it's to change somebody's afternoon. But the reminder is that, as in the woman who wrote to you, you change her nights, and that can
Yeah.
be a huge change. That can be a huge benefit to somebody. Um, so
Yeah.
that's a great message to get from a reader. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was great.
so okay, new readers, somebody who has never read anything of yours yet. Where should they start?
I don't know. Maybe I would say maybe book 3 and then go back and read book 1 and 2 if you want.
Interesting. Okay. And what's the title of book 3?
Alive and Killing is the
Ooh,
title of book
okay.
3.
Okay.
And it's the first book that, well, the second book takes place in Colorado, but it hinges heavily on book 1, I guess, a little bit.
Ah,
Because when I first started my career, I thought it was clever to lead the people into the book 2 by making the first book a cliffhanger, which have since completely rewrote. Let me make that clear. So it's a
no longer a cliff ride
no. It's
Okay.
no longer a cliffhanger. It's a standalone ending. The whole book is standalone, but the second book definitely has to do with the personal life continuation of that.
Okay. Book 3 would give you enough feel of the characters, but then 1 and 2 would deepen who they are
Yeah, it'd be
and
kind
make
of like a prequel,
yeah.
I
Okay, that's
guess.
really interesting. Do you find that any of your books, once people are into the series, do they read the whole series, or do you have one book that maybe is overlooked a little bit, that even your loyal readers are missing for some reason?
I think that they read through most of the series. I feel like I mean, the ones I hear from, I guess,
Yeah.
would, I guess it would make sense. Um, I feel like number 5 stands out. Cold Lake stands out the most to everybody. I don't know why it has like the most reviews. But otherwise, I don't think it's. No, I feel like they all stand out, I guess, pretty well. I could be wrong, but yeah,
Okay. Okay.
probably need to ask the readers more about that. But yeah,
Well, no, if you don't, I tend to think of these as orphan stepchildren books.
right.
So if you don't have one, that's great. That's wonderful. Um, okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to answer?
I can't think of anything. No,
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you wouldn't like to answer?
I would never tell.
Smart person. That's like
Yes,
when I go to the dentist and they ask you if anything hurts, I'm thinking, I'm not telling you, you know?
exactly.
All right. You ready for the rapid fire either ors?
Sure.
Binge watch or make the watching last as long as possible.
Binge watch.
Mustard or ketchup?
Catch up.
Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Winter Olympics.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Although I want to get away from it. Go ahead.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Cruise or trekking vacation?
Trekking vacation.
Ice cream or cake?
Ice cream.
Spring or fall?
Spring.
House decorating or gardening?
House decorating.
Paper plates or best china?
Paper plates.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Day or night?
Day.
Opera or show tunes?
Show tunes.
Hiking boots or cowboy boots?
Hiking boots.
Pickup or sports car?
Pickup.
Sailboat or motorboat?
Motorboat.
Hot air balloon or train trip?
Train trip.
Daisies or roses?
Roses.
Appetizer or dessert?
Appetizer.
Jigsaw puzzle or crossword puzzle?
Crossword puzzle.
And this is the last one. Grab the best first or save the best for last?
Ooh, save the best for last.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on Authors Love Readers. And for the listeners, we hope you'll come back next week for another episode and another conversation with an author to get to know them better and find out all their secrets. And have a terrific week of reading in the meantime. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.